You're in a desert, walking along in the sand, when all of a sudden you look down.
What one?
What?
What desert?
It doesn't make any difference what desert. It's completely hypothetical.
But how come I'd be there?
Maybe you're fed up. Maybe you want to be by yourself. Who knows? You look down and see a tortoise, Leon. It's crawling toward you.
Tortoise? What's that?
You know what a turtle is?
Of course.
Same thing.
I've never seen a turtle, but I understand what you mean.
You reach down and you flip the tortoise over on its back, Leon.
Do you make up these questions, Mr. Holden, or do they write them down for you? Hello.
Hi.
And welcome to episode 110 of Modern Technology Watches.
Oh my good gracious, I would say we're into double digits because, when I turned 10, I was super psyched about being a double digit, but all these episodes have been 3-digit episode numbers, so it's kind of immaterial.
Yeah, but I kind of like it.
I do too. It's very exciting.
We're into the tens place, so that's exciting.
Woohoo.
And we should say, I am Rob Vincent.
I am Gila Drazen.
And we are a married couple showing one another films from our combined collection and cataloging the results with this here podcast thing.
Yes, this here podcast thing here.
And what I have in mind for tonight, it has a little significance vis-a-vis the calendar, but I will get up and go grab it.
Okay, so I will look over this way and I will continue saying that this is very exciting, and because of the way that we have our movies alphabetized, I can't even look at the general area where Rob is right now, or I might know what he's doing. Okay, he's back.
He's back.
He's back.
And he's handing you something.
Okay, what is the significance of Blade Runner to the calendar?
The significance of Blade Runner, for reasons I'll explain later, I should point out it's the final cut of Blade Runner. There are many versions of this movie out there. Blade Runner was made in 1982. Mm-hmm. It's a sort of dystopian, cyberpunk, sci-fi thing. It's a look at a dark future, which happens in the then distant and mysterious date of November 2019.
Getting it in just under the wire, aren't ya?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and we are recording this at very near the end of November 2019. Now is when this movie takes place, but that was 37 years in the future.
37.
This is also one of those movies reviled by girlfriends and wives and romantic partners of sci-fi nerds everywhere. I don't expect you to really love this.
Uh-huh.
But I wanted to get it in, not only because of the date, but because I do really like the movie, and it kind of molded my young brain in a direction. And through watching this, maybe you'll learn a little bit more about what the inside of my head is like.
Well, I will say that part of the issue I have with this kind of reissue of a movie is that the back copy doesn't have a heck of a lot to do with the movie itself. It's got more to do with the reissue of it.
That is true. I will explain. Ridley Scott is the director, mm-hmm. and the version of the movie that came out in theaters was meddled with beyond his control.
Ah.
So it's not so much a George Lucas thing of I want to keep screwing with a finished product that I already had.
Han shot first.
Yeah, it's more he finally years later got the chance after the film had built up a cult following and became well known among film nerds and celebrated and stuff. He was finally given license to do what he actually wanted with the film in 2007, I believe this came out. Yeah, it's a reissue, but it's not a George Lucas special edition.
Well, because I was going to do our, now traditional reading the back, but okay. After the second sentence, it's pretty okay. Visually spectacular, intensely action-packed, and powerfully prophetic since its debut, Blade Runner dazzles in Ridley Scott's definitive final cut, including extended scenes and previously unseen special effects. In a signature role as 21st century detective Rick Deckard, Harrison Ford brings his masculine yet vulnerable presence to this stylish noir thriller. In a future of high-tech possibility soured by urban and social decay, Deckard hunts for fugitive, murderous replicants and is drawn to a mystery woman whose secrets may undermine his soul.
Nicely put.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't come up with any of it, but
Well, I think that does serve as a functional blurb.
replicants?
Replicants.
What are replicants?
The movie explains, but I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to tell you that replicants are artificial beings.
Okay.
They look human, but they are created.
Haley Joel Osment.
Not so much.
Okay. Sorry, I never saw that one either.
So,
Yes.
if you would care to join me in the not too distant future of this month,
In the not too distant future of right now.
and join me for a viewing of Blade Runner, the final cut.
Well, I think this will be fascinating. And if not, pray for me during the music break, won't you?
Blade Runner.
1982 and 2007's Blade Runner.
Hey, Gila.
Hey, Rob.
Are we back?
I think we're back.
We are way back.
We are so back. We are so back. We're almost forward again.
Okay, so we are recording this on the 30th of November, 2019.
Remember the 30th of November.
Yeah, it was today.
The plot to make me talk about Blade Runner.
Blade Runner, which takes place this month.
This month, getting it in really right under the wire here, Mr.
Yes.
Firefly.
The far mysterious future of this month has happened, and we've seen it. And I remember at the end of the movie, you had a question.
I did, yes.
All right, do you remember what that question was?
I do, yes.
Okay, for the sake of the listeners in this podcast, why don't you ask the question now?
Yes, the question was what? What?
Yes.
Yes, I also had a second question.
And your second question.
What?
I remember you also had a third question
I did,
after that.
as it happens, I did have a third question, yes.
What was that again?
It was actually, yes, what was my question?
The one you asked after the movie.
Oh, right, the question I asked after the movie was what? What? And also why, but mostly what?
So,
Yes, Rob.
would you say that this is a movie? I'm just going to ask this right up front before
Sure.
we do any of the recaps.
Sure.
Would you say that this is a movie that you are now a fan of?
I would say this is a movie that if I never had to see it again, I think my life would be okay.
So, I will say you are in very distinguished company because this is a film that film dorks and sci-fi dorks and cyberpunk dorks are constantly showing their significant others, insisting it's one of the most brilliant things ever. And so many of those significant others seem to agree with you that the movie is a pile of crap.
I'm not saying that the movie is a pile of crap because you said before we went into it that it was visually like nothing else. And that is very true. The world building is fabulous.
Yes.
The scenic design is wonderful. And the production design is wonderful. The rest of it kind of sucked, though. Like, the story and the script and the acting and the music. I'm sorry, Vangelis, but the music.
Oh, even Vangelis.
Even Vangelis, yeah. Although I did realize there is a term for... There's a music cue that you and I had been discussing, and we couldn't figure out a word to use for it, and I think I figured it out. Ready?
What's that?
Saxophone.
Saxophone. Yeah.
It's saxophone.
Except with Vangelis, it was synthy saxophone.
Still. I know this movie has a lot of meaning for you.
I mean, meaning is a funny term for what this movie is to me. Because you could take most of the frames from this movie, just pause it at that frame and print it out and have like art that you could hang on your wall and just admire. It's a beautiful film made of beautiful looking frames. And it's a feast for the eyes.
It's a feast for the eyes.
It's a visual feast. The stuff going on in the background is more interesting than what's going on in the foreground. The story, it's a kind of a bog standard action movie, people trying to kill other people story. There's the whole noir thing, which is basically a standard film noir, but like fast forwarded into 20 minutes into the future. You know, that's all well and good. The performances are there, but what mostly gets me every time this film is on is just the depth of the world. I mean, I personally, I feel like I could just reach into the screen, you know, turn my head around and see everything else that's going on in this world. It just seems like a world, and it's a world that I love spending time in.
Enhance.
Yeah, there's a pretty great enhanced trope scene. So, we watched the final cut of Blade Runner.
Yes.
I mentioned there were multiple cuts of this film. And what had happened was when the movie came out in 1982, it was a cut of the film that had basically been taken away from Ridley Scott, the director, by the studio, and had like a happier ending forced into it, and had they didn't trust the audience's ability to follow the story, so they added voiceover narration by Harrison Ford, who really didn't want to be doing it, and it sounds that way. And basically chopped it up a little before turning it out into the public. Years later, sort of I think a work print of the film had leaked out, which was an early version, but which had more of what Ridley Scott originally wanted to do. It developed a following of its own in sort of the bootleg and sci-fi convention scenes, and had enough interest where Ridley had started an effort to restore the film to his own cuts and choices and stuff. And I think that a version of that, there was a director's cut, which was not Ridley Scott's final version. It was one that he had more input into, but it wasn't actually like his final cut because there were still decisions not made by him. So the final cut, which was released in 2007, is the Ridley Scott definitive version. And that's what we watched on disc. That's what we're judging now.
So what you're saying is this movie could have been worse.
It could have. It wasn't like a George Lucas sort of, I want to go back and fiddle with, stuff in ways that I couldn't back then.
Han shot first.
Yeah, exactly. It was Ridley Scott trying to take it back to what he wanted to make, and the studio wouldn't at the time let him.
This movie. It was, I'm not going to say it was pretty, because it wasn't pretty, it was gritty, but it was very, like, well done artistically. But what I have often said is that as much as film is a visual medium, I do need to have some kind of, like, engagement with the story for it to work for me. Mm-hmm. And, no, I'm sorry, no, it was not. I know that the plot summary on Wikipedia is long. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of confused as to how that happened because, no. The fact that the plot summary of this movie is significantly longer than the plot summary of The Tao of Steve, just as a random example, kind of blows the mind.
Well, what I'd like to do is we can start going through the cast. So there's a little call-out box here on the Wikipedia page for Blade Runner, which has the main cast. And so I think we'll start at the bottom of that and work our way upward.
All right, let's do it.
All right. High Pike as Taffy Lewis. Taffy Lewis was the guy who ran the Snake Pit Bar.
Right, in Little Arabia.
Right. He was the slimy bar owner guy.
Yep.
What's to be said about him? He was in Dillinger in 1973. He was in student films.
Okay.
Yeah. Morgan Paul as Dave Holden. Dave Holden is the guy at Tyrell Corporation who is doing the Voight-Kampff test on Leon in the beginning of the film, because the replicants are trying to get to Tyrell, and one of the ways in which they're expected to do that is by trying to get jobs there, passing as new employees. So they get the Voight-Kampff test, which is the test that tells if you're a replicant or a human.
Do we ever find out why it's called the Voight-Kampff test?
I don't think it's specified in the movie. It might in the book. I don't remember.
Okay.
Ostensibly, I mean, I would assume that it's the people who invented it or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess as much, but it's not like we know who they are.
Yeah, we haven't gotten as yet the spin-off of Voight and Kampff and their madcap adventures in Blade Runnerville. James Hong as Chu. Chu was the little old guy who made eyes for the replicants. And James Hong was definitely a that guy actor. He was a Chinese actor in a ton of Chinese stuff, then in a ton of Western stuff, playing the Chinese fella.
There's actually a mistake in here.
Now, where is here? Because you're looking at a book.
I'm looking at a book. I'm looking at a book called Hey, It's That Guy, the FameTracker.com Guide to Character Actors, which I think is actually out of print, unfortunately. I love this book. I gave it to my parents. I stole it back on a recent trip to my mom's house. It is a lot of fun. It is unfortunately not terribly well fact-checked. Hong, for his part, is well known for his role in Big Trouble in Little China, along with two others. One, Hannibal Chu, eye maker, a.k.a. the guy who gets his own eyes squashed in Blade Runner. That's not true.
No, he's not the one who gets his eyes squashed.
No, he's not.
Well, he plays Mr. Ping in the Kung Fu Panda franchise.
Well, it hadn't come out yet, I don't think, when this book was printed.
And he's a founding member, charter member, and former president of the Association of Asian Pacific American Artists, AAPAA.
APA.
Yes.
Great stuff. So we're proceeding up the cast list to people who have more than one scene, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Because now we're on to Joanna Cassidy as Zora. She was the stripper in the strip club. She had the snakes, and she had the clear plastic raincoat, and the big hair.
And the boobs. She had the boobs.
She had both of those, and the body glitter in the shower.
Right, yes. The thing I did mention to you before was that it's not just that this movie doesn't pass the Bechdel test. This movie is not even allowed to register to take the Bechdel test. Like, there are 3 female characters, and none of them are even in the same scenes.
You know, this movie, when presented with the Bechdel test, flipped the table over and shot the test administrator.
Yeah, it was not even allowed to register for the Bechdel test.
Nope. The women in this movie don't come off well.
They're not even people.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
But Joanna Cassidy is lovely. But she was also Dolores in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
That's right.
She was Eddie Valiant's love interest. She was also in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. And she played Margaret Chenoweth on the HBO drama series 6 Feet Under.
Oh.
Which I have not seen.
I saw bits and pieces of it. I liked what I saw. You might enjoy it.
Joe Turkel as Eldon Tyrell. Eldon Tyrell was the genius scientist at the top of the Tyrell Corporation.
Who got his eyes squished.
He's the one who got his eyes squished, yes.
That was gross. I was not prepared for that.
Yeah, there were violent chunks in this film. Apparently some of the more violent stuff is what got cut out of the theatrical cut and Ridley put back in for this cut. I call him Ridley, like he's a pal.
Your pals, yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, good old Ridley.
Ridley.
Well, I can't call him Scott. I mean, that's a last name for a first name, and that's just weird.
No, it's true.
Or a first name for a last name. I killed my own joke. But he was also, a different iconic thing he did was he was Lloyd, the creepy, ghostly bartender in The Shining, the original Kubrick version of The Shining.
Which I've also not seen.
He also played a creepy janitor on Boy Meets World.
So creepy was kind of his stock in trade.
Yep.
Okay.
And he's still around. He's 92 years old now. Good for him.
Good for him, indeed.
Brian James. Brian?
Probably Brian.
It's Brion. He's usually the big mean guy.
Who was he in this movie?
In this movie, he was Leon.
Oh, he was the replicant who killed the guy at the very beginning.
He was the replicant with the mustache of power. I think he gained his powers from his mustache.
Ah, yes. It was sort of a Samson thing.
Yeah, it was a powerful 80s movie mustache. And he wore it well.
So true.
Yeah, he did about a squillion things in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. He was also, in 1978, he played a park security guard in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park.
Well, I mean, I would have quit acting right then.
William Sanderson as J.F. Sebastian.
Okay, now when I saw that name come up, I definitely thought it was William Atherton. It's not.
Yeah, this is not Wally Wick here. This is William Sanderson. He is such a that guy.
He really is.
And he in fact wrote a book. He wrote a memoir called Yes, I'm That Guy.
Yeah, it came out a few months ago.
Yeah, and his picture on Wikipedia is him holding a copy of his book, Yes, I'm That Guy, by William Sanderson. And he was the genetic designer in this movie who had Methuselah syndrome, so he was supposed to be 25 years old, though he looked middle age. But he was also very well known to those who were fans of a certain sitcom back in the day, where he had a brother Daryl and another brother Daryl.
I was amazed when you told me that.
He was Larry from Newhart.
I would say that his character was probably the best developed in the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he made me sad.
He had a personality, definitely.
And it made me sad.
Yeah, his character was a guy who, he says, I made lots of friends, and then you go up to his apartment and you realize that he made his friends. They are creatures. They are replicant type things. They are toys that are walking around and maybe sentient, who knows. But they're all like greeting him and making him tea and bringing stuff around for him. And so he connects with the two replicants later in the film. And yeah, he's a lonely guy who just wants some friends. He's playing chess with Tyrell, and he's a lonely geek, basically.
That's sad.
Yeah. I think he put in he might have put in the best performance in this film.
I would also agree.
Like acting wise. Mm-hmm. Daryl Hannah as Pris.
Yeah.
She's known for the role as Pris. This is her Wikipedia article now. She's known for her role as Pris Stratton in Ridley Scott's science fiction thriller Blade Runner, and as Kathy Featherstone in Randall Kleiser's romantic comedy Summer Lovers, as the mermaid Madison in Ron Howard's fantasy romantic comedy Splash. That's where 80s kids know her from.
As an 80s kid myself, I would also put out there that she played Annelle in the film version of Steel Magnolias. And that's where I most know her from.
She was also Roxanne in the movie Roxanne.
She was the titular Roxanne.
Yeah, which was the Steve Martin basically updated reworking of Cyrano de Bergerac. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was in Wall Street, Steel Magnolias, and more recently she was in the show Sense8 on Netflix, which I really liked.
Okay.
Yeah, Daryl Hannah.
Daryl Hannah with a hay bale on her head. We have a lot to talk about when we get there.
Yeah, she had quite a hair thing going on in this film. But yes, Pris was the replicant who was as they put it, a pleasure model. Yep,
sex robot.
She was the sex bot. Yes. Emmett Walsh as Harry Bryant. He's the police captain who sends for Deckard and sends him out to get these replicants.
Okay, so just to make sure, it's M. Emmett Walsh.
Correct.
Not M. It's not like a weird sort of.
Not M. Emmett, like Emmett. No, it's
like when you go to the website to purchase small chocolate, like candy covered chocolates from the Mars and Murray Corporation. That's MMS.com. And that's what it makes me think of when you say Emmett Walsh.
Emmett, yeah. So Eminem Walsh.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, he plays Police Captain Bryant. And he's sort of the standard gritty cop movie police captain who's like, no nonsense, go out and get these bad guys, and that's your job, and blah, blah, blah.
Well summed.
He was also the psycho in the Steve Martin movie The Jerk, directed by Carl Reiner. Love that one.
I know you do.
And Edward James Olmos as Gaff. Gaff was basically the cop chauffeur. He was a cop who brought Deckard around on his missions, and every so often said something mysterious and maybe philosophically significant in some way.
And we cannot forget, he made Almost Gami.
He made Almost Gami all over the place.
Edward James Almost Gami.
Yes. And he went around like with a walking stick and a zoot suit looking thing, and basically like looked angular and badass, and that was his job.
And well, I mean, that's kind of what he does, though. Mm-hmm. You know, but I was so confused by him.
What confused you about the character of Gaff?
The first of all, the fact that we're calling it a character, because really all he did was show up and tell Harrison Ford where to go. Mm-hmm. That was it. And why did he make origami?
Yeah.
And the lack of character development in this movie just frustrated the hell out of me.
Well, without him, we wouldn't have had all that Edward James Origamos.
I like that better.
Origamos. Yes.
Just don't sprinkle him on pizza.
But he seems to have. He's like some of these cult movies have that one character that doesn't actually do much, but they sort of take on deep significance for the people who are really into a film. Mm-hmm. And so people have developed theories about Gaff, which,
I'm sure.
Which are interesting. Sean Young as Rachel. Rachel was the replicant in Tyrell Corporation, who was the latest and greatest replicant model with her memories based on those of Tyrell's niece.
Yeah. Sean Young.
I really like Sean Young.
I know.
I think she's one of those actors who is known for a certain type of thing, but like hasn't really gotten anything that in which she's allowed to shine like I think she probably could. I think she deserves a better career than she's had, and yeah, I'm a Sean Young fan. But yeah, this movie doesn't make the best use of her, nor does it for any of its female stars.
Well,
but
I would say it doesn't really make the best use of anyone.
yeah, but yeah, her character is one of the most questionable things about this film for me.
Yeah, I mean,
Her character and her arc.
the second she stepped on the screen, I was like, she's a replicant, isn't she? And you said, what makes you say that? And I was like, yeah. It's very clear. It was clear to me from the jump.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to like encourage whatever thoughts you're having about this film without spoiling stuff and like letting the scene hit you like it hits anyone who's not seen it and doesn't know what's coming. But yeah, when she goes on and she's got that very specific stiff walk where like one hand is on her hip and the other hand is waving around back and forth as she's walking like a model down a runway in this fashion that no human does.
I mean, it was very clear to me from the jump that she was a replicant. Mm-hmm. Her memories may have come from Tyrell's niece, but I think her presentation came straight from Joan Crawford.
Yeah, and I think she would come by that honestly, because this film is basically an cyberpunked up old film noir of the sort that Crawford would have been the femme fatale in.
For sure. But, it's also just like, it's 2019. Mm-hmm. And I know it's now 2019, but 2019 then, it was, no matter what kind of future you imagine for 37 years from now, I don't think it's one where we're living in that world and taking sartorial cues from Joan Crawford is just, I don't know, something about it didn't match for me.
I don't know.
Nothing did.
There are parts of this very city that you could walk around in and probably bump into someone unironically dressed in Joan Crawford-esque wear.
No, that is true.
Especially during like Fashion Week.
Fair.
But and rockabilly's a thing.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So, and there will always be ebbs and flows of old fashions. But the thing with her in this movie, I mean, she's got that immaculately sculpted hair butt thing going on. Until
it's a hair butt, yeah.
Until she does that thing that you have to do if you're the femme fatale in a movie like this, where she takes like a pin out of her hair butt and then shakes it out, and then she's got the big curly Sean Young hair.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work. I'm sorry, no. Speaking as a woman with curly hair, It doesn't work that way.
So you're saying we couldn't put one pin in your hair and then all of a sudden you're wearing the hair butt?
Given the amount of hair that I have, no, one pin would not a hair butt make.
Well, I'll see if I can make this work if I ever like grow my eyebrows long. And Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty.
Right. So the minute that his name popped up in the screen on the credits, I was like, oh, he's the bad guy.
Yeah, that is kind of a Rutger Hauer thing to happen.
Just work in your wheelhouse, Rutger Hauer.
But he was a jobbing, badass looking actor like for decades and decades.
Mm-hmm. Until he died recently.
He died in July of this year, and obituaries went around online and stuff, and there were people who couldn't resist the urge to point out that, oh, just like Roy Batty, he died in 2019.
Oh, jeez.
Now I'm kind of just as guilty of that because I've went and repeated it on this.
I'm sorry, you know how crabby I get when people try to attach significance to when someone died because of their earlier work, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. But Rutger Hauer, he was in a ton of great stuff.
He was also in this.
But he was also nicely done.
Thank you.
But he was also one of those people, I think, that even when he was in cheese, he could elevate it and make it just something fun to watch. He was in a movie that we were going to have to watch at some point called New World Disorder.
We watched part of it.
We did watch part of it.
Because it has Andrew McCarthy.
Yeah, for those unfamiliar, he basically, this was in 1999. Looking it up, this was in 1999 that he played the old grouchy cop who gets a new partner who's a young woman who is the computer expert, and he's like, "Oh, these funky computers, I don't know about that." But it turns out that like the villain of the piece is this badass master hacker guy who is played by Andrew McCarthy. And also, there's a sleazy club owner in that movie played by Michelle Gomez, who played Missy, the female incarnation of the Master in Doctor Who, opposite Peter Capaldi.
That was why when I saw her in Doctor Who, I was like, she looks familiar, and I didn't know why, and now I know.
Yeah, Michelle Gomez is awesome. And the movie New World Disorder, it's hot garbage, but it's wonderful hot garbage in that cheesy movie sort of way. And
yeah, I would like to see the rest of it.
But yeah, so Rutger Hauer, I mean, what's left to say about him?
Right,
He apparently improvised and rewrote his final monologue in this, which we'll get to. So yeah, he contributed to this film in significant ways. And Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard.
Like Harrison Ford, I'm getting frantic. So the thing that amazes me about this is that this happened after Star Wars, and this was also after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, no. This was after Empire Strikes Back, the second Star Wars movie in 1980, but before Return of the Jedi, which was in 1983.
I get them confused. Okay, so it was after two installments of Star Wars.
It was between the second and third produced installments of Star Wars. It was right after Raiders of the Lost Ark, which was 81, but before Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which was 84.
Okay,
so it was between the first two Indiana Jones movies. It was between the second and third iterations of Star Wars.
And this was not something that had been made several years earlier and then held. This was a conscious choice that this man made at this point in his career to go do this shitty cyberpunk, no character development, running around and kicking people movie.
Well, honestly, he that's not too far. And I say this as someone who likes Star Wars and who likes Indiana Jones. He doesn't do much character development in those either. He's the handsome, hunky guy who shoots and or hits stuff to make stuff happen.
So I recognize that it's of a piece, but this is weird and violent and rapey.
Yeah, very rapey. We'll get to that. But he also went on after this to I think do less action hero-y stuff. He did the movie Witness in '85. I think that was kind of a turning point for him. Mm-hmm. Went on to do Regarding Henry and The Fugitive and more thinky stuff. Sabrina, he still did the action cheese, but he also went on to actually do things that required maybe some sort of acting.
Right, because this nope.
No, but he looked good in this, and I think given what he had in the part of Rick Deckard, standard film noir sort of cop, sort of investigator guy, I think he fit the bill.
So that's the cast.
That is the cast of Blade Runner. So yeah, the cast of this movie, maybe not its best part for you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, it's not like I was listening back to our Warriors episode and reminded of how many people who were in the Warriors quit acting after the Warriors. This movie wasn't that bad, but no, I mean it's a fascinating collection of jobbing actors and it was so bad though. I mean, it was visually very well done. Mm-hmm. But it was so bad.
Well,
it made no sense.
So let's hit the plot.
Let's hit the plot, such as it is.
Let's shake this around and see what falls out. The plot from the Wikipedia article for Blade Runner. In 2019 Los Angeles, former policeman Rick Deckard is detained by Officer Gaff and brought to his former supervisor, Bryant. Deckard, whose job as a Blade Runner was to track down bioengineered humanoids known as replicants and kill them, is informed that 4 replicants are on Earth illegally.
Because replicants were illegal on Earth.
Right. Basically, replicants were banned on Earth. They're illegal to have on Earth. It's illegal for them to be on Earth, but they're still used in off-world situations, such as like building out colonies and fighting wars and mining and stuff like that. They're basically slave labor.
And we're trying to get people to off-world colonies because this planet has just gone to shit.
Right. It's established that the planet is this kind of total crap sack. You know, it's polluted. It's raining all the time. It's basically dark all the time, unless you get to like the top levels of the Tyrell building, and then you can maybe see a little sunlight coming in the windows. The world is broken by 2019. Pollution is terrible. That's a prediction that this movie made about the year 2019.
I mean, I did find an article that was like things Blade Runner got right and wrong about 2019.
Deckard starts to leave, but Bryant ambiguously threatens him, and he stays. The two watch a video of a Blade Runner named Holden administering the Voight-Kampff test, which is designed to distinguish replicants from humans based on their emotional response to questions. The test subject, Leon, shoots Holden on the second question. Bryant wants Deckard to retire Leon and the other three Nexus 6 replicants, Roy Batty, Zora, and Pris.
Okay.
Yeah, and they actually skip over the first Voight-Kampff test, which is Holden administering the test to Leon, and that's one of the quotable scenes from this film for the fans of it, because it's kind of fun questions. Like you pick up a turtle and you lay it on its back and its belly's baking in the hot sun and it can't turn itself over, but you're not helping it. Why aren't you helping it?
Because fuck turtles.
See, if Leon only thought of that. But another established fact about this world of Blade Runner is that real animals are super rare. And the privileged can have artificial animals made by Tyrell Corporation, who also makes the replicants. But real animals are a rarity. So, yeah, in that world, if you had a turtle and you killed it, like, you'd actually be doing something terrible. Later, there's a question in a test later in the film, like, someone gives you a calfskin wallet. What do you do? And the answer is, I turn it into the police and report that person.
Oh, see, and I just thought it was like because it was assumed to be a stolen wallet. Like, yeah, it's a wallet. It's got somebody's stuff in it. I'm going to give it to the police. I didn't even think about that. Oh, my God, this movie was working on levels I wasn't even noticing.
That's another part of the world building. And, like, there was the world of this movie, like, I haven't, despite being a big fan of this movie for reasons, I have not seen the sequel, which came out, I want to say a year ago or so.
Ish, yeah, I think.
I have it, and I just have not looked at it. I'm kind of anxious to watch it because I'm like, well, how is this going to measure up? It's not really Scott directing it. Is it, like, does it even mean anything if a film is as pretty as this one was, like, forced into being in 1982? I have a lot of things sort of slowing down my urge to grab the sequel and watch it. But I did play a video game in the 90s. There was a point-and-click computer game called Blade Runner, put out by a company called Westwood Games that did a lot of these sorts of things. But it was 90s computer animation, so kind of vaguely Toy Story-ish level of computer animated people walking around. But the graphics were really well done, especially for the time, and the story was actually really good. Because the story of a point-and-click adventure game, especially a long one, is like really deep and layered, and you get to choose like what you investigate and stuff. And the characters were totally different characters. They weren't any of the same ones, really. As
I mean,
movie.
most of them weren't left after the movie was over.
Right. But I remember really enjoying that game. Like, if I replayed it now, maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know how well it's aged, but I remember it being like a really, really fun experience, and also just something I really enjoyed about it was another chance to step into that world that this movie created.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I can watch this movie on mute and enjoy myself. I can have this movie on in the background while I'm like cleaning the house or something, and just every so often look at it, and there's something pretty happening usually. That's the purpose this movie serves for me, I think.
Okay.
Let's get back to this plot before I digress some more. Bryant has Deckard meet with the CEO of the company that creates the replicants, Eldon Tyrell, so he can administer the test on a Nexus 6 to see if it works. Nexus 6 being the latest and greatest version of the replicants.
Yes.
Tyrell expresses his interest in seeing the test fail first and asks him to administer it on his assistant, Rachel. After a much longer than standard test, Deckard concludes that Rachel is a replicant who believes she is human. Tyrell explains that she is an experiment who has been given false memories to provide an emotional cushion.
Okay. I mean, I knew. I don't know how he didn't know. I knew.
Searching Leon's hotel room, Deckard finds photos and a synthetic snake scale. Roy and Leon investigate a replicant eye manufacturing laboratory and learn of J.F. Sebastian, a gifted genetic designer who works closely with Tyrell.
Okay, so they freeze the poor eye guy.
Yeah, they freeze the poor eye guy. Yeah, when you first see him working, he's working in this basically a big freezer. Everything's obviously frozen around him, and he's wearing this big furry coat that has like tubes leading to equipment on the somewhere off camera, and apparently that's what's keeping him warm and alive, so he can work with his frozen stuff. And so when the replicants show up and they start threatening him and messing him up a little bit, one thing they do is they tear this coat off of him, so he's basically freezing to death and asking for his coat back.
And they had like torn the coat in half, so it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
But the thing I also found very interesting, okay, this is something that I actually found interesting in the movie.
Be still my heart.
I know. Was the way that the people who were on the team at Tyrell interacted with the replicants. Mm-hmm. It was sort of almost parental. It was like, oh, I made your eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, I did your genetic sequencing. Mm-hmm. There's a part of me in you.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, and I kind of wish they had explored it more. Because, what it means to be involved in the production of this thing that's illegal. What it means to be invested in the creation of something that then, goes off and is a commodity, basically. But I found that very interesting.
That is an interesting detail. And yeah, they're basically going around investigating Tyrell people, trying to get to someone who can give them answers about themselves. And it's established a little later in the film what their goal actually is, which is it's established at the beginning that the replicants have only a 4-year lifespan.
Would we call that planned obsolescence?
In a nutshell. And what they want is more life. And they want someone at Tyrell who made them to be able to give them answers on how they can avoid this death date and just have more life. And an interesting detail is like Deckard finds the photos in Leon's apartment, and they're basically family photos. And later Leon is talking to Roy about how he couldn't go back and get his photos because Deckard was in the apartment. But those photos are the photos of his like false memory childhood and family and everything, and he still wants them.
Odd.
So, yeah, it's odd, but it's like his emotional basis is this life that he feels like he's led, even though he's aware that he hasn't, and he knows what he is. So unlike Rachel, who's like devastated and doesn't know what to do with this information that she's a replicant and her memories are someone else's, like Leon is, he's kind of holding on to it like a teddy bear or something. I mean, I find that interesting.
No, it definitely is.
So Deckard returns to his apartment where Rachel is waiting. She tries to prove her humanity by showing him a family photo, but after Deckard reveals that her memories are implants from Tyrell's niece, she leaves in tears. Meanwhile, Pris locates Sebastian and manipulates him to gain his trust.
Does she, though?
Yeah, I don't know how much she does. Like, it's implied that that's what she's setting out to do, but, like, Sebastian, I think, knows exactly what she is and is just, like you said, like, really, he feels like part of him is in the replicants and he wants to help them.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't really have to be threatened or, when the replicants go back to his place with him and he's just talking to them and talking about how awesome they are and, like, they're putting on demonstrations for him. Pris reaches into some boiling water where he's boiling eggs and, is throwing the egg around. Like, he's really pleased with these replicants.
Absolutely.
And, wants to be their pal and wants to help them.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he is such an inherently lonely character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all his friends are the artificial creatures that he makes, and here are, like, the best ones.
Right. So he's not, it doesn't take that much manipulation. And she's like, I don't think it takes any. Where's your home? I don't have one. Okay. Mm-hmm. The end. And also, she's wearing a hay bale on her head. Yeah.
It's not a very good wig. But then when this happens, like when she goes to his apartment and she starts painting herself up like one of his toys, and maybe she's wearing the ratty wig to like further resemble a toy. Who knows?
Could be. Or maybe she had a bad perm.
It could also be the case. I mean, it was the 80s.
It was the 80s. Well, except it wasn't the 80s.
Yes, it was the future of the 80s. I mean, there were shoulder pads everywhere.
That there were. And also a hair butt.
And a hair butt. A photograph from Leon's apartment and the snake scale lead Deckard to a strip club where Zora works. Zora works. Hello, I am Don Diego de la Vega, and I will be your stripper today. That's a whole different club.
Jess.
Yes, where Zora works. After a confrontation and chase, Deckard kills Zora. The thing too, Zora, I think, was established as a soldier in her replicant life, and so here she is as a stripper, but still kicking the crap out of him.
Yeah, I mean, when Deckard gets the briefing about the replicants, he finds out what kind each one of them is, and Pris is a pleasure bot, and Zora's a soldier, and Roy Batty is a soldier. And Leon is a guy, and
I think Leon was just like a maintenance guy.
Mm-hmm. Give him a mop.
And because this is an 80s movie made for adults, it needs a certain quantity, a certain quota of boobs, and Zora provides those. So that happens.
That happens.
Male gaze, she plays with a snake, then goes and gets killed.
She had a mission. It was to show us her boobs.
Mm-hmm. And her mission was a success. Deckard kills Zora. Bryant orders him to also retire Rachel, who has disappeared from the Tyrell Corporation.
Dun, dun, dun.
Precisely. After Deckard spots Rachel in a crowd, he is attacked by Leon, who knocks the gun out of Deckard's hand and brutally attacks him. And again, he gets the crap beat out of him some more. One thing Harrison Ford does well in this movie is get the crap beat out of him.
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
This movie is very adept at tossing Harrison Ford around. As he's about to kill Deckard, Rachel saves him by using Deckard's gun to kill Leon.
Okay, so as I've said, Wikipedians, Wikizens, whatever we call you, I am not really impressed with the pronoun usage in that sentence.
As he's about to kill Deckard, let's diagram this. As he's about to kill Deckard...
As Leon is about to kill Deckard...
Rachel saves him...
Rachel saves Deckard.
By using Deckard's gun to kill Leon.
Right. Yeah, it's a bit rough.
Not the best one. I mean, you're welcome to fix it if you want. I'm not going to bother.
I don't care that much, honestly. But, if I hadn't seen the movie, I would be a little more confused.
As opposed to now.
Exactly.
They return to Deckard's apartment, and during a discussion, he promises not to track her down. As she abruptly tries to leave...
But he tells her someone will.
Yes.
I won't, but someone else will.
Mm-hmm.
It's real reassuring.
As she abruptly tries to leave, Deckard restrains her, making her kiss him, and they share an intimate moment with each other. No, Wikipedia. No. Okay,
no.
That's not... No.
No. Okay, so first of all, the entire scene where she's in his apartment was the saxophone.
Yes.
Like, the minute she walked in there and the saxophone kicked up, I was like, oh, there's going to be replicant sax.
Yeah, it was basically the Vangelis equivalent to wah, 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 wah.
Yeah, no, that's basically what that was. But, this is after Chariots of Fire, right?
I don't know.
I think Chariots of Fire is 81.
Chariots of Fire is a 1981 British historical drama sports film directed by Hugh Hudson. Yeah. So,
1981. I knew
So
it.
this was right after Chariots.
Yeah.
And, and this scene, I think even among the people who are fans of this film, who are professed members of the cult, I know I feel this way. This scene is bad.
It's bad.
The scene is bad, and they do bad things with it.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's Rachel being the woman and vulnerable in the hero dude's apartment, and then wanting to leave, and he suddenly is like, "No, you can't leave because I love you now," and restraining her and forcing her to kiss him, and then then she's just like, "Okay." I don't want to, but okay. And like,
it's super squicky.
It's very squicky. I think It's definitely squicky now. I think it should have been squicky in 1982.
I can only hope. And if anyone, okay, when Blade Runner came out, we respectively were 5 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
We clearly did not see it then. If you are listening and are an adult who watched Blade Runner in 1982, please tell us if you remember how you reacted, or if you remember what the public discourse was around that scene at the time. We'd love to hear from you. Plus, send us an email at watches@modern.technology and just fill us in a little bit.
Yeah, because that scene was rapey. There's
Yes,
no other way
there
to...
is no, it's rapey.
Yeah.
And there, are questions that one can address about consent if you're not human.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't make it any better.
Yeah, and consent when you're in a vulnerable position, and then the one person who seems to be able to help you in any way decides to have his way with you despite your protests.
Yeah.
No.
And no, it was so... Ugh.
And there's always been a sort of tendency in film noir, which this is trying to base itself on, and even in pulp sci-fi and everything, there's that whole trope of the woman for no reason falling for the hero, and just like, they might snark at each other or something in the beginning, but then there's a kiss and they're like, oh, okay, we're doing this. But like, this was very obviously crafted so that the scene showed her not wanting to do this, and then they do this, and then she's okay with it. And no,
she's not, though. And it's so...
And then he's like just making it creepier. He's pushing the make it creepier button by doing things like now you kiss me, now touch me, now tell me to
stop.
No,
just
no,
stop. It was the hardest thing to watch in this movie, including when Rutger Hauer jammed his thumbs into dude's eye socket and there's blood everywhere.
Right. Now this is the scene in this movie that I do not enjoy. This is the scene in this movie that I would not print up frames from as artwork. The other ones, yeah.
I also think that narratively, it just didn't...
And yeah, narratively, it didn't even make the sense. It was like, there wasn't even the indications that they had any sort of spark or chemistry or liked each other, or like they spent a whole thing doing a test and there was no like knowing glance or, hey, how you doing? Or,
just nothing.
There was none of that.
There's none of that.
So this scene and what it established is not okay.
Nope. Super not okay.
And the Wikipedians who decided to word this as them sharing an intimate moment with each other, seriously, fuck you.
You could change it.
I might after this. Arriving at Sebastian's apartment, Roy tells Pris that the others are dead. Sympathetic to their plight, Sebastian reveals that because of Methuselah syndrome, a genetic premature aging disorder, his life will be cut short just like them. Sebastian and Roy gain entrance into Tyrell's penthouse, where Roy demands more life from his maker. Tyrell tells him that it is impossible. Roy confesses that he has done questionable things, but Tyrell dismisses this, praising Roy's advanced design and accomplishments in his short life. Roy kisses Tyrell, then kills him.
But why? I mean, it can't be done, but like, you're going to kill the one person who could potentially change that for future iterations of this thing that you are. What is gained by killing him?
Yeah, at this point, I don't know if Roy is taking the long view. I mean, he's established as basically a psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, he's a killing machine. Yeah, That's why he exists.
He is a literal killing machine. I mean, it's what he does. And so he's like killing his maker after finding out there's no way to have more life is, just kind of him raging a bit. And then you see Sebastian, as it says here, Sebastian runs for the elevator, followed by Roy, who rides the elevator down alone. The whole thing is like, and later it's established that they found two bodies in Tyrell's apartment. One of them was Sebastian. So Roy killed Tyrell, then he killed Sebastian, the one guy who was being really friendly and helpful for him.
And also, he was the genetic sequencer.
Yes.
If anybody could have then fixed it, it would have been him. But no.
Well, it's established when they're talking with him earlier, that's not the side of things that he knows anything about.
Okay.
Which is why he takes him to Tyrell.
Right.
So Roy kills everybody. Deckard is later told by Bryant that Sebastian was found dead. That comes in over his police radio. At Sebastian's apartment, Deckard is ambushed by Pris, but he kills her as Roy returns. the way that whole thing happened is like she leaps up on him, sort of playing chicken in the pool style, with where she's up with her legs over his shoulders.
She backflips a few times and then winds up on his shoulders.
Mm-hmm. And then she's just like reaching down and smacking him in the head a few times, like just wailing on his head, turning him around somehow underneath her.
Yeah, like he flips 180 degrees, and I thought that he was dead because I thought that was just his head moving, and apparently it was all of him.
And then she decides to like flip off of him, run down the hall, then do more like acrobatic backflips toward him again. It's like you already had him in a vulnerable pin, but instead you're going to jump off of him, take a few steps, then try and do spinny things back at him again.
I'm assuming getting an acrobatic stunt double was a cost for the production, and they wanted to get their money's worth.
Maybe, but I think Daryl Hannah could actually do that stuff. Like she does it in the apartment scene, and it's obviously her. It's her, and they don't cut it. She just like does some cartwheely stuff over to the boiling eggs. So
that is true.
So she was able to do that stuff. But yeah, it's kind of shot in Confuso vision. And then so she runs away and starts flipping toward him again, and that's when he shoots the hell out of her.
And then it's a long death scene.
Yeah, it's a long, twitchy death scene, which I think more was edited back into for the final cut, I believe. There
was one question that I had, which was, given the humanoid elements here, are you only able to kill a replicant by shooting them?
They're established as being really physically durable. Like they could reach into the boiling water, and they could hang out in the freezing environment without any protection.
But like you couldn't if you kicked them off the top of a building.
I don't know, and it's not established in this movie. But Deckard's gun that he uses is not like a standard sort of gun. Like it's a future-y gun, and it's got 2 triggers on it for some reason. You can't really see it that well in the film, but if you see like photos of the prop they used, it's got like lights on it and 2 different triggers, and so maybe it's some anti-replicant gun that's specialized for killing replicants. I don't know. I'm just theorizing. I've not looked deeper into the lore, where I know there's been like novels and tie-ins and extended universe stuff.
Of course.
But I haven't dived into it. There was a recent Blade Runner comic series that I read for a while and just kind of lost interest in. It wasn't grabbing me. Maybe that's why you have to be a Blade Runner to go out and shoot replicants, because you have to learn how to use some special Blade Runner gun.
Okay, well then that something that will come up in a little while makes a lot more sense now, but we'll get there.
Okay. Roy's body begins to fail as the end of his lifespan nears.
So wait, hold on. Because this is like the climactic showdown between Roy and Rick that we knew was coming.
Right. They're running around through Sebastian's place, which is this big, cavernous, decaying building.
And at one point, Roy, like, grabs Rick's arm through a wall or something and starts breaking his fingers. And that, now that I think about it, I'm wondering if that was a thing, because he broke his pinky finger and his ring finger.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, why does that make a difference? Because you only need one finger to shoot a gun. But if it has 2 triggers. See?
See, now you've just pointed out something that I never really noticed about this film, and I've seen it about 100 times.
Well, there you go.
But yeah, he breaks 2 of his fingers, and he breaks one and says, this is for Zora. He breaks another one, this is for Pris. I guess Leon doesn't get a broken finger for him.
Well, it's also established somehow that, like, Roy and Pris have some kind of a relationship going on.
Yeah. They have kind of a big sloppy kiss in Sebastian's place.
And all of a sudden, like, Roy is wearing all of Pris's face paint, and...
Yeah, when he finds her dead, he's basically putting her face paint on himself and raging at over her corpse for a bit,
and licking her blood, if memory serves me correctly.
Maybe I don't.
Like, he dips his fingers into the hole and like licks her blood. I think it was creepy as hell. Honey, if I ever get shot, please don't do that.
I'm not planning on it.
Okay.
I mean, don't get shot, but
I'm also not planning on that.
But should that happen, that's not going to be my first instinct.
Thank you.
No, I took first aid. There's other stuff I could do.
Thank you, dear.
But yeah, and that's when he freaks out and starts breaking Deckard's fingers. But then he says, "I'm going to come for you but I'm going to give you some time to get a head start."
Which I just didn't understand.
It kind of ties into what's coming up here. Okay. I think he chases Deckard through the building, ending up on the roof. Deckard tries to jump onto another roof, but is left hanging on the edge. Roy makes the jump with ease, and as Deckard's grip loosens, Roy hoists him onto the roof, saving him. And before Roy dies, he delivers a monologue about his memories will be lost in time, like tears in rain.
Okay, hang on. So, what was the thing with the nail?
The thing with the nail was Roy's hand started freaking out, and that was his body basically winding down because he was just about to come up on his end of service date.
Right.
And so I think he drove the nail through his hand to do like a very subtle stigmata thing, but also it was basically to, I think, just get his hand to stop freaking out so he could keep using it to beat up Deckard.
Okay.
But then later when he jumps onto this other roof and hoists Deckard up, he's hoisting him up with the hand with the nail in it.
Right.
Like, that's my good hand. But yes, and he has the famous tears and rain monologue. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
What a cop-out. What was... They, were fighting each other and I know he was trying to do this like pseudo Shakespearean thing because, thus with a kiss I die. Is it time to die?
Lo, I am slain.
Exactly. So then he just puts his head down and just,
Right. But time to die was something that that Leon had said to Deckard when he was trying to kill Deckard.
Right.
Like, time to die, as in I'm going to kill you.
Right.
But then he uses time to die at the last moment as, oh, time for me to die. I think it ties into one thing that happens here that Wiki doesn't mention is when Deckard jumps onto the other roof and his grip is slipping and he's flailing, Roy on the other roof catches a bird and just kind of holds it to him, keeps the bird with him as he jumps over, and then hoists Deckard up, and he's just regarding this bird, which, in the context of this movie, seems to be a real bird. It's not like a pet in someone's house. So it's a rarity, and it's an alive thing. And I think this ties into why he gave Deckard a head start, because, like, at the end, he's starting to, I think, maybe realize the value of life a bit, which was not something that he was given as a soldier bot. And he's just, like, starting to get sympathetic and realize that, okay, he's about done, and is he going to kill this other guy, or is he going to just monologue for a bit?
Monologue. Monologue.
So he's basically, instead of raging against the dying of the light, he's just like, okay, well, this is happening, and, that sucks. And then he dies, and he lets the bird go as he dies, and the bird flies away. And it's all very cinematic.
Yes.
Yeah. Ridley Scott, he's very good,
You don't say.
Yes. So then he's dead while Deckard is just lying on this roof looking whipped, and then Gaff arrives and shouts to Deckard about Rachel. It's too bad she won't live, but then again, who does? Deckard returns to his apartment and finds Rachel asleep in his bed. They leave the apartment block together.
Right, and that's the end. So it's just like, what? What?
Yeah.
And, I thought, because, when he found her there, and she was under her coat, and I was like, okay, maybe she is dead. I thought maybe she had reached her end of service date.
Mm-hmm. Because when he comes home, like, the door's open, and he does that thing that the cop does in every movie when he finds his own apartment door open, which is he goes in with the gun drawn, just looking around the corner, Rachel.
And then he found her, and I thought he was going to shoot her in the head because, it's his job to retire the replicants. But he's fallen in love with this one because of her appealing personality and or her hair butt. I don't know. And then they leave the apartment together, and because he's taped together his broken fingers, he's trying to get her to come here, but he inadvertently does a live long and prosper thing, which I just loved. And then they get in the elevator, and that's the end of the movie.
Well, but missing the detail that in the lobby, as he leaves his apartment and goes to the elevator, he finds another Edward James Origamos on the floor, and it's a unicorn. Much like the unicorn that he was kind of daydreaming about earlier in the film. There's a part where he's going through like evidence and stuff and just thinking about stuff, what do you think about? And he was just daydreaming about this unicorn. As he's leaving with Rachel, he finds this Edward James Origamos unicorn on the floor in the lobby, so he knows Gaff has been there. And you hear him remember Gaff's words, it's a shame she won't live, but who does? So you don't know what they're leaving and what they're going to find out there. Like, is it Gaff and the rest of the cops there waiting to shoot Rachel, or are they going to get away? Are they going to have some kind of life together? Or is he just going to get her out of there and then like come back? Whatever. So it ends on a question mark.
It does. Now, my question for you is: you had told me that there's like a fan theory that Deckard is a replicant,
Yes.
and that somehow the unicorn is a cue to that, or is a clue that people have picked up on for that.
Right. And that ties more into the Gaff stuff, because there are people who, and I totally don't get it. I do not understand this theory, even as someone who enjoys this film and who's seen it a lot. I don't understand anyone thinking Deckard's a replicant. There's just no evidence pointing toward that for me. But how the theory goes is that Deckard is a replicant, and he's basically Gaff's replicant. So Gaff is the one driving him around to all this stuff and like telling him what to do and whatnot. And Gaff somehow knows about Deckard's daydream about a unicorn, which is why he origamis it as sort of a note. So like that's meant to, according to this theory, raise the question that is Deckard a replicant who's just going to wind down anyway, just like Rachel? And are they going to go off and they think they have this life together and they're just going to like both run out of batteries at the same time? I do not think Deckard's a replicant. I don't understand why people would. I've read the theories in detail. It seems to be the sort of thing where people are reading way different things into a movie than I am, which I guess is okay.
I mean, it's okay. I also don't agree. I don't think it makes any sense that he would be. Not a lot about this movie makes a lot of sense. Please don't get me wrong, but no.
But I'll tell you what the ending was in the theatrical cut.
Okay.
In the theatrical cut, which was the victim of executive meddling, after they leave the apartment, you see Deckard driving in a car down beautiful tree-lined roads, and there's this voiceover about how Gaff said she wouldn't live long, but she was wrong because Rachel was the best kind of replicant and she didn't have the 4-year lifespan limit. And so they're going to go off and live happily ever after. And so, yeah, that's the shit ending.
So basically what the studio version just tried to remove all ambiguity.
Yeah. Not only did they try to remove all ambiguity, they tried to give it a happy ending that completely didn't fit with anything else that had been established as the rules of the film's universe.
Yeah, no, you can't have your cyberpunk dystopian film noir have an unquestionably happy ending. It don't work that way.
Yeah. And also when the world has been established as a crap sack that people are like trying to leave to get a new start in off-world colonies.
Right. Like what tree-lined street were they driving down?
Right, exactly. So, yeah, that was Blade Runner.
That was Blade Runner. Yeah. So, again, I know this is something that you like a lot, and I appreciate your sharing it with me. Yeah. It's certainly not something that I would have come to on my own. Mm-hmm. So thank you for expanding my world. Mm-hmm. With that said, yeah, I'm good.
You don't need to revisit this again?
Not so much, no. I'm almost morbidly curious about 2049.
Yeah, Blade Runner 2049, the sequel to this, which I have not yet seen, but maybe when it's real 2049, we'll do a podcast about it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Mark your calendars.
I don't even buy green bananas. So that's okay. Let's say, discussion question. You wake up and you're in the reality of this movie. You're in that sort of world. Mm-hmm. And replicants are happening and they're illegal on Earth, but they're doing whatever on off-world colonies as slave labor. Are replicants people?
Are replicants people?
Yes.
Well, I mean, despite the fact that I was able to very clearly clock Rachel as a replicant, I don't think I'd be able to tell who was and who wasn't, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I'd say that replicants may not necessarily be people, but I think you have to treat them like them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, behave with the supposition that everyone is a person. I don't know that I would say replicants are people, but I don't think there's like different codes of behavior for them.
Okay. Do you think they dream of electric sheep?
Of course they do. Do you think replicants are people?
I think it's an interesting question because, like, what is being a person? You see them learning and growing and having feelings when they're given that sort of mental backstory, even if it's stolen from someone else. They seem to be feeling and exhibiting and displaying the emotions. So they're one's sad when the other one he loves dies and so on. So yeah, replicants seem like people and should maybe be given some sort of rights. If I'm a legislator in the Blade Runner universe, that's the platform I'll run on.
I'll make a note of that.
Well, so that was Blade Runner. You don't have to watch it anymore. So anyway.
Yes, I'm assuming you're one Firefly up.
My Firefly is up, and where's yours?
My Firefly is like wandering around, stupendously confused, just sort of muttering and questioning the nature of life at this point.
Well, a new life awaits your Firefly in the off-world colonies.
One can only hope.
Indeed. So, tell us what you think of Blade Runner, and tell us what you think of some of the stuff that came out of our brains regarding this film. Send us email at watches@modern.technology. And check out our other work at modern.technology. We're doing some other stuff. Some new things will be popping up soon, about which I'm excited, but about which I'm not going to talk yet.
Yes, but also find us on Twitter. We are at MTPodcastNet.
Yes, the letter M, the letter T, the word podcast, and the word net.
You can also find our own personal social needs.
Yeah, if you go to modern.technology and go to About Us, and all our personal guff is there. And yes, we write us email, tweet at us, and contribute to what might be a mailbag section if we ever get any mail to bag.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for listening.
We appreciate it.
And this is Rob Vincent.
Gila Drazen.
We'll catch you next time.
We'll see you at the movies.
They're going to retire us for doing that.
How can they retire us? They're dead.
Like tears. Right.
You've been listening to episode 110 of Modern Technology Watches with Gila Drazen and Rob Vincent. Go to modern.technology on the web for more info on this show, our other work, and our social media noodles. Our music is The Promise by Torley Wong, released Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. Find more from Torley at torley.com. Thank you, Torley. Content from wikipedia.org is used under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. This podcast is released under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0, produced by modern.technology. Send us email at watches@modern.technology, and if you like us, tell a friend, or 2, or 10.
I have here in front of me some of the lines from Harrison Ford's shitty voiceovers for the studio's initial version of this film.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I want to ask you if the movie would be worse or better with these voiceovers, and I'm going to give them to you in my best dispassionate, disaffected Harrison Ford voice. When Roy saves his life on the rooftop, he says, "I don't know why he saved my life. Maybe in those last moments he loved life more than he ever had before. Not just his life, anybody's life, my life. All he'd wanted was the same answers the rest of us want. Where do I come from? Where am I going? How long have I got? All I could do is sit there and watch him die."
No.
That wouldn't have enhanced the scene for you?
Not even a little.
What about, "I watched him die all night. It was a long, slow thing, and he fought it all the way. He never whimpered, and he never quit. He took all the time he had, as though he loved life very much, every second of it, even the pain. Then he was dead.
You made that up.
Nope. That was just over footage of Dead Roy with his head down.
Jeez. No. No, I'm also just, how many of these things make me want to break into song, though?
Okay, how about...
I watched him die all night.
How about, if you're wondering why he quit the police force.
You know, I did wonder.
I'd quit because I'd had a belly full of killing, but then I'd rather be a killer than a victim, and that's exactly what Brian's threat about little people meant. So I hooked in once more, thinking if I couldn't take it, I'd split later. I didn't have to worry about Gaff. He was brown-nosing for a promotion, so he didn't want me around anyway.
Like I said, I'm amazed to know that this film could actually have been worse.
How about when he finds the snake scale in Leon's apartment?
Okay.
Now, when you were watching that, I mean, you've seen police procedurals. You
Yes.
know what was going on. He was looking for evidence. He found something that was evidence.
Mm-hmm.
But what you didn't have was the additional information granted by the voiceover over that scene.
All right, lay it on me.
Whatever was in the bathtub was not human. Replicants don't have scales.
Yeah.